I really wanted to bring a group here, an Openhand group, to La Palma. As soon as we could after the volcano had erupted back in 2021. And it would be possible, still possible, to come here and meditate. Why? We are sailing into a grand galactic convergence of high energy segment of the galaxy during a grand solar minimum and the culmination of the planet's pole shift. Huge elevation of energy. And I feel that in the mainstream, we can say, and in also the spiritual mainstream and even the alternative communities, there's not enough attention, or hardly any attention at all, being paid to this grand galactic convergence. Yet, it's influencing every aspect of life on the planet right now. It feels to me kind of like we're living in a false, fake reality. And even though some people are getting this at an intellectual level, I don't really feel like we're responding to the depth of degree that we need to in order to meet this convergence and this tremendous influx of energies which are activating, catalyzing the planet right now. I don't feel we're paying enough attention to that. I feel that, when you're traveling in the matrix, the metaverse, so to speak, then you're seeing a lot of people trying to live life today as they did yesterday. Some kind of normal and a kind of protectionism of the ego, shutting down to what's really transpiring and unfolding. And that's just going to derail people, upturn them, really cause chaos in their lives and then suffering if it's not dealt with. And the beautiful thing about sitting right next to a volcano, it's just over there basically, and it's still active. The beautiful thing about that to me is it is reality landing that you cannot avoid. And you can see just over there where the new volcano top has formed and exploded. It's still active. And I wanted to bring people here because I really felt like it's the sense of being on the edge of the shift. And that's coming to our reality now. It's converging in this time. So what does that do? Well, it's going to activate fear. Yes, highly likely. And that's why a lot of people glaze over or contract down when you start talking about it. They want to change the subject. They want to distract into something else. It's kind of understandable, but it's still self-defeating and self-derailing. There is fear to confront, and it's important to recognize that fear is a gateway, because that's what's stopping us from being fully self-realized, realizing of the one self, who we really are at the core, and that we don't die, that we are at that level eternal and go on again and again and again. And it's fine to know that at an intellectual level, but to live it in an embodied way is something completely different, or at least It's much more advanced, shall we say. And so being on the edge of life, the way, the volcano takes life away, but it also creates, then you're seeing tremendous greenery springing up out of the ashes of the volcano. So destruction is construction when it contains the seeds of the future. That's what we must bear in mind. So there's nothing to fear from what is coming, because we will transform. Those who are able to let go of the old reality construct, the old identity, will transition through this and come into the next version, the new paradigm of planet Earth in 5, 6, 7D. And so for me, when something like this happens and you're in proximity to it, then you're getting a snapshot, a confrontation of reality the way it really is. And it's crucial, it's an invitation to embrace and go with it, move with it. Now you might think, well, yes, I get that. And I understand that this grand convergence of different cycles is happening. But what about my daily life? Because to you, to us, that's real, right? In society, how we live and work, relationships. Well, what I would say is that convergence is affecting every single aspect of life on the planet right now, right down to the minutiae of how we live and exist in day-to-day life, right down to the very minute detail of it, because it's all interconnected by the flow, all interconnected by this grand movement. And so nothing is separate in that regard. It's going to trigger everything that is resisting that movement, where we lock down, where we go into conditioned behaviorisms and programs. It's going to trigger all of that. It's going to trigger the karma that's holding us in place. And so the invitation is to recognize this infusion of energy and this invitation to transform into the new iteration, the new evolution of human beingness.
And we will keep on fighting to the end. We are the champions. We are the champions. No time for losing, 'cause we are the champions.
Every single step that we take, but only if our orientation is accurate. By that I mean the orientation with this grand movement. If we are actively engaging with it and understanding how to engage with it. And that's what the Thrive from 5D work is all about, the evolution of the 5 gateways work. It's about recognizing we're living in two worlds, not one. Recognizing that you're likely being pulled in two different directions. The ego is pulling in the direction of the old paradigm and the control system and the machinations of that. And all those people are still plugged into it. And let's be clear, just having an intellectual awareness of the shadow and what it's doing, that's not awakening. It's awakening at one level. It's not awakening to the soul necessarily, because the soul is then wanting to guide us in a particular direction, a way of expressing and being, which is challenging the nature of that. And so you'll find yourself in any given moment pulled in two different directions, or you likely will. And at that point, life can become very dysfunctional, because you're in these moments, grand moments of unresolution, where it feels impossible almost to make a choice. It even challenges your psyche, your sanity. It can feel like that at times. But the crucial thing is to recognize that the way of operating, functioning, the way we created in the old paradigm is breaking down, and progressively you're getting a diminishing return from it. It's being less and less successful. But if we open through that, if we open through the automated conditioning, then we're going to create the space for the soul to express and draw us in a different way of creating, because we're infusing the energy of this grand galactic convergence. It's all lining up. To me, that's what the 1111 synchronicity is signifying. It's the connection of 4 key centers. My own soul with that of the Earth, with that of the solar system, with that of the galactic core. These centers are lining up. The invitation is to go with those cycles, that movement that you can feel. You see it in signs of synchronicity. You witness it in sacred geometry, patterns, flows, starts to speak to you in a different way. And the more you acknowledge and go with that, the stronger the pull builds in your life. And because the old paradigm is being broken down at the roots, then what's happening is this new possibility of creating is infusing through. And to me, that's the great excitement of something which challenges the old construct and the way we lived and worked and are doing now. It's like you're engaging yourself in an unwinding mechanism. You're unwinding the old reality, you're creating space for the new flow to come in, and that's speaking to you in a different way, a sense of rightness, a sense of connection, and an animation of authentic being, which you feel simply as right coming through you. And it'll have different frequencies. It'll be soft and loving and caring, compassionate. It'll be strong, willful, courageous. It'll be diplomatic at times. It'll be magical. It'll create from tremendous new possibilities that you hardly imagined previously were possible. This is what's coming alive in people, but you've got to work for it. You've got to be prepared to turn into those moments in society of maximum inconvenience, because it's in those moments of unresolution that if we take ownership and if we ask the fundamental question, why did I create that? If we ask that question and take ownership, I created the inconvenience because it causes this bottleneck inside, whether it's emotional, mental, physical, karmic, it creates this bottleneck. That's why I created it in that moment. If I dare to take ownership, not project or blame externally, but take ownership, now I have a chance to see, well, where and how and why am I attached to that old paradigm, that old behaviorism? Where am I in fear of going forwards and doing it a different way? How is that impacting inside? If I can feel that, if I can touch that, and I can only do it by taking ownership, I now have the capacity to let go of the baggage that was holding me. Because I have a choice. I'm faced with a choice now. Does it serve me to carry that baggage? Does it feel okay? Is it worth carrying? Or can I accept the consequences, the possible consequences of putting the baggage down, opening the space for the unknown to come through, to speak, to animate through you? It's the only way reality is going to shape, change, and create in a different way.
So I just wondered if you could tell people what it's like to be leading open hand retreats and what you feel open hand retreats are all about in a kind of general sense.
Wow, that's a good question. That's a great question. Firstly, I would say it feels like a tremendous privilege and a pleasure to be working with people who are digging deep and having the courage to go into the karma, take ownership and dig in and unravel it, because then you feel as a guide, as a leader, that you feel the emergence of soul welling up. And then you get this tremendous kind of, effusive expression as we just did in the studio. And that you feel fulfillment from that. That's phenomenal. And you can't, there's hardly any words that can describe it. There's no price you can put on it. So that for me is the real pleasure of it. But of course there's also a lot of work getting to that point. And I think this is not often appreciated in spiritual work, where you're aiming for kind of emergent, released kind of state, that the need to go through the density. And so as a guide, as a facilitator, you feel that on multiple levels. So you're feeling their karma, and you're feeling the group karma and energy too. And it's like you are embodying it to some degree, and because you're then embodying it, you can bring energy to it to activate it and unravel it. That's incredibly demanding and tiring, but as I said, when it works, as it usually does, then it's bloody fulfilling.
Yeah, that's your feedback loop for all the energy that it takes.
Yeah, indeed.
This is the enormous opportunity now, and I feel, because of incidents, circumstances like this, and it's only one, you've got volcanoes, earthquakes going off around the planet, you've got storms triggering off all over the place. We are in a climate crunch point. It's not about man-made fossil fuel emissions. No, that's only a small element of what's going on. But there are massive changes happening, not just to our planet, but every other planet in the solar system. That's all being impacted. It's all moving, it's all shifting. And the invitation is for us to shift with it by confronting, unraveling, unwinding whatever gets tight inside. That's the mechanism for the shift. Plenty of pontificating about how 5D is realized. It's not something that's done to you. It's something that you actualize inside yourself as the moving flow compels you differently now than the way you lived your life before.
The mountain is a real bellwether for what's happening, transforming, changing on this island, in the Stargate of the Canaries and further afield. And you get the sense of that, you get the feeling, experience of that when you're up here above the clouds, above the obscuring energy, the filters, the layers. And you get the sense of a fresh incoming infusion of light, which is transforming it, breaking it down. And then also higher dimensionals anchoring, coming in. That's the sense of it to me. It's literally breathtaking. Breathtaking.
That's why I feel so inspired to be here, to be in the truth of what is going on in the world, as a feeling, not as an intellectual idea, to know this phenomenal change, transformation that is happening, and to feel yourself moving as a part of it. Nothing can be more fulfilling and beautiful and connective and joyful. Even when you're challenged, you recognize that to be gained from it. That's the point of this work. That's the point of Thrive from 5D. It's time now. It's time to orientate toward the shift and move with it. And that's certainly what we'll be doing here with the Openhand work. Thriving from 5D. Namaste.
Time to go.